Welcome to Tech Bites with Dan Hafner, your gateway to the future of innovation and technology. Dive into the exciting world of software where cutting-edge tech meets creativity. Explore no-code solutions that empower businesses to thrive without traditional barriers. Hear inspiring stories from tech pioneers and industry leaders who are changing the game. Join us on Tech Bites and transform the way you think about technology and business.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. My name is Dan Hafner. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to today's episode. A very interesting and phenomenal guest. I'm really excited. His name's AJ. He is another software founder, another person who's been through a lot of growth and very interesting things. Has a very cool product we're going to talk about today. But before I bring him on, I just wanted to, again, let you guys know about the upcoming no code series that I'm putting together. It's going to be a 10-episode series starting from zero. What is no code? How does it work? How does it apply to your business? How does it apply to your startup, whatever the case might be? And how can you leverage this in addition with AI to take advantage of this brand new gold rush that's happening? So be sure to keep an eye out for that. Again, like I mentioned, it's coming somewhere around episode 400. We're in the 390s now, so it's coming very soon. Still working on putting that together, but be sure to subscribe to the show, like the show, whatever the case is, so you're notified when those start dropping. So with that promotion out of the way, we're going to talk about the Daylite app. We're going to bring in AJ. How you doing, AJ? Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on. Looking forward to this.
Absolutely. So AJ is the CEO of Market Circle. They're the makers of this Daylite app. He's bootstrapped this entire thing, developer turned business owner, a perfect fit for this show. So I'll stop trying to edify you. Tell us a little bit about your background, 30 seconds to a minute. How did you get into what you do?
So I was always interested in the small business space. So I've always believed that small business is where big business comes from, where progress is made in society, etc. Right? All these ideas, they're small ideas. Somebody has an idea. It seems small, and then it blows up somewhere as they grow it. Right? Yeah. It's we hear the story about starting in the garage, or nowadays in the second bedroom, or etc. Right? So, or in a cafe. Right? So that's always been my kind of thing. So when I was going through school, I was going through college, and I in our case we had these co-op programs. And in co-op, you go and work for 4 months, then you come back to school for 4 months, et cetera, which is a great thing for students to learn what they don't like. And so I learned that I don't like big companies because I went to work for IBM. I went to work for some other bigger companies, and I'm like, this is not for me. I was already a small business proponent, and so I learned that I want to be in a smaller business, and one thing led to another. I started my own company when I got let go from another company, which is a relatively small business, about 200 people. That's not massive, not like IBM. And in that process, I pivoted multiple times. A long story. Like I went out to market with a .com kind of idea. I got to the VCs the day the .com bubble burst. So I'm aging myself here, but
Terrible timing, huh?
Yeah, terrible, absolutely terrible timing. But pivot after pivot. This is a thing. As a small business owner or an entrepreneur, you got to learn how to pivot. You got to kind of read the market a little bit, or the situation, and pull up your socks, pivot, and keep moving. Right. So that's what I did several times. And we came to this product called Daylite. Daylite, actually, I built it mostly for me, because at the time I was selling consulting work. And one of the things was I would showcase, I was thinking of showcasing my technical prowess so that you would hire me and my team, right? I had a couple of people with me. And so that product became what is Daylite now. And the idea behind it is to help small businesses grow. And in order, the fundamental things in order to help a small business grow is you need customers, right? So by default, the CRM part of Daylite is strong, and that's how we're kind of known. We go by that kind of thing. But we're really productivity first, and then CRM with the whole intent. The whole idea is to help that ambitious person grow their business to 20 people, 30 people, 100 people. We've had people, customers that have started with us really small, 4 or 5 people, and then they're over the 100 mark now, right? Which is
Wow.
to me that's like I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, think about the economy that you create just by building something. I think that's something that a lot of people don't even think about. And that's one thing that took me probably several years to realize of. I was just out there building things, doing my thing, doing no code, building software for people, then stepped back and was like, I wonder what like has actually been business results from these things because I never really followed up a lot with that. And then when I went and
Right.
dug into the customers and what they did with it and how I was like, holy crap, like that's quite the impact. Like
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. That's why I say that, small business, being an entrepreneur and you having an idea and pursuing it is actually a noble thing because if you pull it off, right,
Yeah.
you're creating jobs, you're improving people's lives, and you're furthering, society. And that's what remember I was telling you at the beginning, right? That's one of the things I believe about small businesses that we further society
Yeah.
in one way or another. And
Very cool.
so yeah, so you're kind of corroborating what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, 100%. So for those of you who are just listening, I'm screen sharing if you watch this on YouTube or Spotify or whatever. We're showing the Daylite app. It's really, really neat. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk with you about. Like it almost looks like you have bits of Trello in here. It looks like you have bits of like HubSpot in Salesforce, but it's all custom. Like you have calendars, projects, opportunities. It really looks like so.
So
So
let me
this
let
is
me give you the gist of it. The
okay.
gist of it
Okay,
is that in order to grow a business, there's one thing. You first of all you have to get business, right? You got to get customers. You got to,
that's the lifeblood. Yes.
right? So that's the top of the part. Then once you get those customers, you got to deliver on what you promised, right? And if you do, you hopefully get repeat business or referrals or something,
Yep.
right? So really the purpose of a business is you go out, you get a customer somehow, some way, and then you deliver on those promises. So Daylite's built around that concept. So the very first part you're talking about the Trello part, that piece there, we call them pipelines in the app. There's the sales pipeline part of things. So you have a sales, but you have a funnel, basically a funnel, right? And you got to manage this thing. You got to follow up. Sometimes these sales cycle take months to kind of close, right? And how do you remember where you were at last? That type of thing. So that's what the
Yeah.
opportunity side of things encapsulates. And then you close the deal, and now you got to deliver, right? You got to do the work. And sometimes it's you, sometimes it's somebody else that's working with you, etc. So that's where the other pipeline comes in, which is the project pipeline, right? So that's what helps you deliver. Now, underpinning all of this is all the little things, the calendar, the tasks, the actual contacts, the organizations, companies, etc., right? Notes, emails. So that underpins these two basic huge concepts, which is get the customer, get the new business, and on the other side, deliver on what you promise or what you promised, right? And another fundamental thing about small business that you'll see, and I've it's kind of like a truth. Like when I'm dealing with a small business person, typically, um, it's a trustworthy person because they're trying to make their business work. So if they say something, they typically deliver it. So that's what I mean by deliver on promises, right? It kind of
Yeah.
ties into the fact that that's typically what happens, right? They can't afford to lose the customers, so they'll work their asses off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So this is interesting because I think, I've worked with a lot of people like this in the past, and I see a lot of people that um we're all experts in what we do. We're all an expert in something, or we become an expert in something. And that really makes you a consultant. Like you're really a person that can consult, that can provide sound advice. You can maybe be an actual paid consultant. Maybe you're a hobbyist consultant. I don't know. But
Right.
my question is, how can you transition that, or at least how did you transition that from being like a consulting company to a
Hmm.
product-based company? There's a interesting transition. I remember one time when
Yes.
I had a mentor of mine, he was talking about how they had done all this coaching and all these things and all this stuff, and they were just kind of trying to fit stuff together. And then I
Hmm.
remember one day he was like, I'll never forget the day I realized that we are a software company. We're a software company. And he was able to
Right.
take all the pieces of everything he did and put it into one software. And then it was just clear as day, just worked, and it scaled his business to just like unimaginable heights that would never have
Okay.
been possible the way he was going, right?
Right. Right.
So what's that process like?
So, um, let's talk a little bit about time and multiplying time. So when you're consulting, which is, by the way, for some people, that's the right thing. That's what they love to do, and etc. Right? Um, but you are trading time for dollars,
Yep.
right? And you have that's a limited resource. Like another principle in Daylite is that time is an unrenewable resource, and you only have you can't I can't multiply my own time per se, right? In terms of myself. And so when you think about it that way, um, you think, okay, well, how could I multiply my time? So that's when other people come into the play, right? So you have other people that you work with either as a contract subcontractor or an employee, etc., right? And you're now starting the process of multiplying your time. And then what's the next step beyond selling other people's time, right? It's being able to sell something that doesn't require any of your time, or maybe or a very little bit of your time, right? And so the idea that I need to multiply my time is what led me to, okay, well, this consulting business is fine. It keeps the lights on, right? Keeps a roof over my head, and I'm master of my own domain, so to speak, in that I can decide who I work with, who I don't work with, etc. Um, the next step is, I have to be able to provide something, a product of some kind. It could be, courses that I'm an expert in. It could be a product, etc. And that's where, we transit. So in the consulting business, when we were consulting, um, that was, remember I was telling you about pivoting, right? I had to pivot multiple
Mm-hmm.
times. So in that thing is you kind of look ahead a little bit and you say, okay, well, this is where I want to go. And you start laying the breadcrumbs down so that you can actually get there, right? And so that's how I succeeded in these various pivots, and continue to stay relevant in the tech space because it's a brutal space. Um, it's just like taking a little bit of time, looking ahead, and then starting to lay the breadcrumbs down. Like when you're consulting, your days can be long. And then when you add people, you get yourself a little bit of that time back. And in that little bit of time, you start thinking ahead, right? You start thinking, okay, I need to get over
Yeah.
there. What are the steps to get there?
Yeah. Did you have a co-founder, or you developed everything yourself?
So I started the company myself. However, my the first person that I quote unquote hired, I consider him my co-founder. His name is Mike. He's our COO. So we kind of worked together. Um, we've been to, he's our current CEO. He started with me way back then. We went through all the pivots together, etc. And he used to be our VP of software. Um,
Okay.
so so now he runs that side of the business because I'm not great at running the business. I'm more of the,
Yeah.
on the product side and talking to people, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people you have visionaries, you have implementers.
Yeah.
It's one thing I've learned in my experience, even being partners in other businesses, is there's people who are very good at seeing the vision, uh, dreaming the vision, can see it as clear as day, but
Right.
can't build anything to save their life.
Yeah.
And then there's people who, can just build all day, implement things, operate things, but when you say, hey, there's this is what we're trying to build. If they don't have a blueprint, if they don't have a step-by-step process, they don't have these things. You know this as a developer.
Yeah.
It's like it causes real anxiety and real stress, right? So
Right.
I
Right.
think I
Right.
think some of I think one, recognizing which of those you are. Are you a visionary or are you an implementer? You can be a little bit of both. Like it's not like you're
Yeah.
one or the other,
Yeah.
but
It's great.
which one do you more gravitate to? Um, and then, like you said, kind of leveraging someone else's time, finding someone else to take over that other role. And I just asked about the co-founder thing because going back to your previous question about, or the previous answer about pivoting and turning from a consulting into a product-based business,
Hmm.
that's where a lot of people get stuck is, well, I have this idea, I have this thing, but I don't know how to build it, or I don't know what to do.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and if you don't have those, that was exactly me when I started, when I was like, I want to build this thing, but I don't know what to do with it, and fell into the world of no code, and then the rest is history.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but that can be a tough place to kind of figure out where,
It
you know what I
is. It
mean?
is. It's, it is. Um, the nice thing is that there's a lot more resources now to help you um, make this transition when if you do
Yeah,
have that uh, that idea, right? Or you're inspired to do something like that. It's the road is not necessarily clear, 100%, right? Um, However, if you're if you have that drive or that willingness to go there and you're willing to just learn. So there's a saying that I don't know where this came from or where I learned this from. It's like you are where you are because you know what you know. Have you heard this statement?
oh, that's interesting. I mean, that I feel like I've heard variations of it. It makes total sense.
So to me, this is one of the guiding principles that, whenever I get stuck, it's like I am where I am because I know what I know. So what do I have to learn, right? And then I go and seek out that information. And sometimes it's talking to somebody that, I ask for advice. And other times it's like I gotta dive into the books because I don't know anybody that can help me in that specific thing. And so, uh, going back to the thing of, that getting stuck there or whatever is seek out that advice. And now with social media and YouTube and all this kind of stuff and podcasts, um, it's easier to find that advice and easier to identify the people that could help you with that because for example, you see if you get a guest on a podcast, you can look them up on LinkedIn or whatever, and maybe they have a book, maybe they have a seminar that can help you with that transition.
Yeah. And I was talking with someone the other day and they mentioned exactly the same thing, just in a different way around like the, the information you need to build whatever you want exists today.
Hmm.
There,
Hmm.
there's very few original things anymore, or like not original. There's very few things that just aren't known, especially with the advent of AI. You can you can ask ChatGPT it or whatever, and it'll come up with
Right,
something,
right, right.
So it's not a lack of knowledge that is out there. It's a lack of knowledge that you actually have and can implement and do, you know.
Right.
And speaking of that, that kind of takes me over to my next question that you actually have here on Podmatch. By the way, if you guys are podcasters and you haven't checked out Podmatch, shameless plug for Podmatch as well. That's how AJ and I met. That's how I meet a lot of the guests on here. You can go to joinpodmatch.com/Dan Hafner and get signed up. That is an affiliate link, by the way. Um, I love Podmatch. I love Alex, the guy who founded it. Great platform. Anyway, I'm digressing here. um, the entrepreneurial disease, you call it. It was a very interesting way you phrase this of doing all these things yourself, being disorganized, being all over the place.
Right.
Did you experience that? Why,
Oh,
how did
I
you get that
experience that all the
turn?
time.
Okay. Okay.
I,
I like how you call it. I mean, it's not good that you call it a disease, but it
did
makes
I call it a
sense
disease?
when you term it that when you frame it that way, it makes sense because what is a disease? A disease is something that's ongoing. It's a chronic thing, and I feel like a lot of people in that stage of business or in where they are, it is a chronic thing of I have to do this, I have to do all this,
Oh,
I've
yeah,
been,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
So this is okay. Now think about this. I have thousands of customers, right? And I've been lucky enough to interact with a bunch of them, and I see this pattern of I got to do everything, right? Um, and that is s- a potential combination of a few things. One is um, you're not willing to let go, which is your own issue. Another is you don't have the right people, right? So if you're not willing to let go because certain people are control freaks, right? And you're not going to be able to multiply your time unless you get over that hump. And that hump is your own, right? It's not somebody's not imposing this on you, right? It's your own. So you gotta have to work through that. You got to learn to trust a little bit. You got, trust but verify. So but then if you have the wrong person, that's just going to exacerbate the problem because they're not going to be able to execute what you need them to execute and the quality that you need them to execute. So you'll be
right.
even more let me do it, and then you're carrying this person. Um, so if you've made that leap to have somebody help you, and that you know and that person is not the right person, then it's again, get rid of them and find somebody else, because if they're the wrong person, you're carrying them, it's costing you, and you're still doing all the work, right? So I've seen people do this, and then they get like this, their profit margin is reduced, they're overworked, and the other person is just tagging along, right? So, if you recognize that, if you're in that pattern, then I urge you to bite the bullet and find somebody else and let this person go. It may cost you a little bit of severance or whatever. That's fine. In the long run, uh, it'll be good.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. I mean, I think that is something we all I mean, I've struggled with that for years, and I still to this day it's tough because you have to it's tough to know when to do that, when to pull the trigger,
Yes.
when to managing people is a whole nother topic. We don't even have time to talk about all that. But it's an adventure, especially this, like, because you're a fully remote company, right?
Yes. We
Yeah.
are now. I didn't start that way, but we are now. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. So does that present even more challenges for managing people and growing things?
It's different. It's definitely
Yeah,
different. So when we were on-prem, and we had an office and everything, the kinds of people that you attract, the is different than the ones that you attract when you're a remote company. So I'll give you a couple segments. So when you're coming out of college or out of university, you still need to learn, right? And going straight into a remote job is probably not a good idea because you learn by seeing what others do. You learn by somebody seeing what you're doing wrong and them telling you, hey, no, 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 you should do this instead, kind of thing, right? So we built a good portion of our company with new grads and co-ops. Just like I was a co-op, I went and recruited co-ops, right?
nice.
And so I was able to do that in an office environment because it's easy to guide them. In a remote company, I can't necessarily hire that kind of person because it's training remotely is very difficult, right?
Yeah,
And so the crowd that actually ends up working in a fully remote company is more people that have some experience already, right? And typically they're starting a family. And so being remote, being able to work from home is an advantage because they need to be home for their kids, etc. Right? And so that when people are in that stage of life, working remote is great. They have some experience. They have some expertise. You don't have to you don't have to watch the baby steps or guide them through everything because they can actually bring some expertise. For them, it's great because they need to be home because they're raising their kids. And then there's the next stage, which is kids have left or, in college or what have you, and now they're bored at home. So they're great to bring back into the office, I think, right? So in our case, we've had
Hmm.
people that were younger that have left because, they're not getting the social interaction they need. And then the older ones are like, you know, I'm bored at home. Right.
Interesting.
So that segment in the middle works great in the room. That's what I've learned, having had both types of companies.
Yeah, I see that. And I think back on my own journey too. Like my very first job out of school was actually one that was, oh, here we go. It was one that was like semi-remote. And
Okay.
I think that was probably the greatest like gift that I could have had because I had jobs since that were in the office all the time, but then when I started doing my own thing, I kind of, hey, I've done this before.
Right, 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 right.
Sorry. Go ahead. If you have anything to add to this, I'm going to try to get my dog to stop barking.
By the way, I'm not hearing anything. So this whole work from home thing or back to the office kind of thing that you're hearing about from all the big companies, which I think is partially driven through because of real estate. Um, it is like for companies that have built their entire culture based on in person, it's a difficult transition. It's not an easy transition
Yeah.
because managing first of all the kinds of people you need, and secondly, managing remote teams requires a slightly different, well, a different discipline. And so that um, it took me a while to make that transition. It wasn't, and
Yeah.
we started the whole remote thing a long time ago prior to COVID, right?
Oh.
And so we gradually did thing where we were working from home Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we'd be in the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? And we learned all kinds of stuff that was broken in our systems, and we fixed those, and then finally we went to Monday, Wednesday, Friday at home, and then Tuesday, Thursday at the office, and then one day at the office, and then one day every 2 weeks, and we kind of then one
Hmm.
day a quarter, and then COVID hit, and then we were fully remote. Um, and we've been fully remote since. But it takes a bit of an adjustment because, how do you know that people are in the right direction?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other nice thing, or the other thing about working from home is just what I was experiencing now when, like, what did I say? Like they'll sit there and lay there, be quiet all day.
Yeah.
And then we're on a podcast and you hear, and it's like, oh my God, dude, come on, man. Like, really? So hey, that's part of the game. But anyway, interesting. And then one other thing I wanted to ask you, as you grow, like you mentioned this on your profile, and and this is something that I think I've struggled with personally, but also I think a lot of other people do,
Hmm.
is when you're growing a business, when you're pushing, when you're grinding, when you're kind of in that place of not even just starting but growing. I mean, it's like a stage that almost never ends, kind of.
Right.
But how do you maintain two things? How do you maintain your physical health and
Right.
then also your mental health? That positive mindset. How do you like what strategies do you have for how you maintain those things?
Okay. For the mental health one, my main trick. I have a few tricks, but my main one is journaling.
Okay.
So I read in this, I've heard of journaling, for many, many years. And then as I learned, as I kept hearing it, I would, when I would get overwhelmed, I would always write stuff down. Like I just have to get it from my brain onto paper. Then once that happens, it's great. But I would only do that when I would get overwhelmed, right? Um, so instead now I journal every day, right? Maybe not every day. Some days I miss whatever. Again, another thing about staying, in a positive mental state is forgive yourself. Like, you'll make mistakes.
Mm.
You may not, you say, okay, I'm going to journal every day. And then whatever happens, you don't journal on Thursday or Friday. Fine, forgive yourself and move on. Don't beat yourself up because that's, it's fine. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it, right? Just keep going. So for me, it's journaling, and then I learned this trick from a book called "The Road Less Stupid" by Keith Cunningham, and in there he says, ask yourself, like in the journal, ask yourself the questions of the problems that you're facing, right? Like how. So I'm facing this problem. How would I go about solving this, right? Ask yourself in the journal as you're writing. The
Hmm.
answer may not come right away, but maybe tomorrow it'll come, right? Or, while you're in the shower, because you've asked yourself this question, and your subconscious will kind of process things based on what you've heard in the past and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know how it happens, but anyways, it does happen. And
Wasn't that
so,
something like Thomas Edison talked about? Like he would, or somebody was like that. They would go to sleep and then they'd wake up and it would be
yeah,
like that eureka moment or something. Yeah. No,
yeah,
I've seen that happen.
that's happened to me so many times,
Yeah.
so many times. The other one is in the shower, and then by the time I come out of the shower, I forget. But it does happen. And so the thing is that for me, for that mental state, maintaining that mental state, and it's like I ask myself the question, and sometimes I start writing whatever comes out, and it may not make sense. That's okay, but the benefit of that is that you have some options. And when you have some options, you're in a much more positive state than if you don't have options.
Yeah.
If you're stuck, right? You're hitting the wall and you feel you have no options, that's an easy downward spiral, right? But if you have like, there's like 4 or 5 things I could try or I could go about, um, then you're like, well, there are options. I can go and figure one of these out, right? So
Hmm.
for me, that keeps my mental state good, right? And forgiving myself for mistakes I make, because I make lots of mistakes. I still make them. I've made many, right? And that's fine. It's just part of for the course. I find that some people, again, talking to customers, they don't, they're very hard on themselves, and I'm like, it's okay, you're
Yeah. I'm
taking
like
an
that too.
endeavor that's not easy,
Yeah.
and you gotta be, you gotta be your own best friend.
It's great to hear.
Yeah, yeah. So those are that's one way for you to, and then the other one is movies. Another hack, right? There are certain movies that you watch and you come out of those movies with more energy,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
And so for me, it was Braveheart and Hunt for Red October. And so Interstellar is another one. And
Oh, I love
so
Interstellar. That just came out on Netflix. I love that.
that's a great movie, isn't it?
Great.
And so what would happen is when I'd get like kind of a little bit down, right? I'd watch one of those movies.
Hmm.
And
Changes your state.
that's right, right? And
Yeah.
so you come out of it, you're re-energized, or not, you feel a little bit better than when you got in. There are other movies that do the opposite for me, so those you toss out.
Yeah.
But
Hallmark movies, those ones along the Christmas Hallmark movies, those will
right,
always
right.
change.
So whatever kind of movie it is, I had those three, so I've watched those three many times.
Okay.
Um, and so that's that's a little hacks you pick up about maintaining your mental state, really, because you have to, as an entrepreneur, you kind of, that's your one of your first prime directives, because if you were in a bad state, your business will be in a bad state
Yeah.
or won't be able to react, and then your personal life will be in a bad state, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
100%.
prime directive, keep your mental state, and for me, journaling, the movies, etc., are the tricks that I use.
Yeah. Win the battle within, and then the external battle
Yeah.
is
Or
easier.
you
Yeah.
have somebody in your corner that's like, encouraging you and pushing you on, which could be somebody in your family
Yeah.
or something.
You mentioned thinking about things in the shower. Just a funny side note. I had a lot of that happen to me too. I still do. I have just like in the shower. I don't know if it's the flow of water, the sound of water, like
I
what
don't know
that
what
is.
it is.
Like a lot of people do that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just like you. I'll forget things as soon as I leave the shower. So what I did one time was I bought a waterproof, supposed to be waterproof whiteboard,
Yeah,
that you could stick up in the shower. And my wife is like, what in the heck is this? And I was like, don't worry, it's going to be awesome. Going to have all these ideas. Sure enough, I tried every dry erase marker I could find, and that stupid thing, when it would get wet, it would not work. Like, it just wouldn't work in the shower. So, product idea for anyone listening out there: if you can come up with a whiteboard that works in the shower along with markers, you got quite a market in the entrepreneurial space. I think you could do very well.
Even in the non-entrepreneurial space, like, you're an engineer, like for me, some of the coding stuff would come that way. Like, oh, I know how to do this now, right?
Yeah.
So there is another little hack, and that hack is, if you have an Apple Watch, you kind of just go into the waterproof, not waterproof mode, but you just turn it off from the waterproof mode and record a voice note, and then back into waterproof mode.
Yes, yeah, there you go.
It's a little inconvenient, but it's better than forgetting something.
Yeah, the tools are there, like the knowledge is there. It's the implementation, it's the protecting your mindset, it's the doing the unsexy things consistently. So very interesting.
And keeping a rhythm, right? Like some kind of routine. So there's this book called The Miracle Minute, Miracle Morning, or something. I forget the name of the book, and there's like I've been doing the journaling as part of the morning now. I used to kind of do it randomly, but now I try and do that routine, and it's quite helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. This has been very, very insightful, very interesting. Thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome. I was happy to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can check it out. It looks like it's called Daylite app. It's DAYLITE .app. Right. Yeah. And it's very affordable. It's like, I don't think I showed the pricing page on here, but I mean, you have definitely very affordable price points for it. You can check that out on the page, but you got free trials, the whole 9 yards. It's a very, very interesting application. Congrats on building it.
Thank you.
Super excited for the success of it. Can't wait to see where it grows into.
We have some good stuff coming. We have some good stuff.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, AJ. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it was great meeting you. Great having you on. And yeah, guys, go check out the Daylite app. We'll put the link in the show notes for you. And thank you so much for being on.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was AJ from the founder of the Daylite app, CEO of Market Circle. So really appreciated having him on. And just as another quick plug for you guys, don't forget the No Code Advantage series is coming out soon. Make sure you subscribe to the show, like the show. Please leave a review or rating. That always helps us grow. And be on the lookout for the No Code Advantage series coming your way soon. All right, guys, that is all for this episode. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bites, your go-to show for software business and technology. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with our latest episodes, insights, and stories. Hungry for more? Dive deeper into the world of no-code by visiting dapnacode.com. Your journey to building amazing software without coding skills starts there. Connect with like-minded creators and unlock a world of resources tailored just for you. Subscribe now. Explore Dapper No Code and let's innovate together.